So I reread your email. I see where I think I got things a little bit mixed up here. So let me read the email that you sent to me, and then let's go back to this because I think that we can get more out of this conversation we're going to have. I think this is great. So here's the email, folks. Listen to this. I began to suspect I had been an experiencer or abductee sometime in my 20s during the 1980s when documentaries on the subject became frequent on cable TV and, of course, all the books that had begun to come out at that time. But I had my doubts because in my encounter, there was no missing time. Oddly enough, my close encounter occurred when I was 13 or 14 in 73 or 74, within a week or two of learning about the Betty and Barney Hill story on an NBC talk show called Tomorrow with Tom Snyder that came out after Johnny Carson. Damn, I'm old. One night, not long after, as described, I encountered a set of orbs, three white, three red, totally silent. I immediately recalled the Betty and Barney Hill story, waved at them with great exhilaration, only to be struck with sheer terror when it stopped dead. And I waved at it, as then also recalled the frightening, painful stride by Betty and pulled my hand down. I'll save the rest of what transpired for our interview. Wow,
All right.
Charles, I should have hit record like 10 minutes ago because I think
Uh-huh.
the stuff you're sharing is amazing. And I want to introduce you to everybody. So thanks everybody for being here with us. Rex Bear Leak Project. Hope you're having a beautiful day. Do you want to protect yourself from potentially harmful EMF radiation? If you do, check out tinfoilcap.co. We have EMF protection from head to toe, literally. So whether you want to purchase a hat, or you want to purchase a Faraday cage for your phone, or you want to purchase an EMF blocker for your driver's license and credit cards, this is called a snood. This will go around your entire head. You can actually wear it kind of like a beanie, but it'll go over your neck and it'll leave your eyes open if you want it to. And you can pull it down below your nose or below your mouth. So these are called EMF snoods. They're all on sale right now. We are the original. The testimonies are amazing. I just talked to somebody the other day that sleeps every night with one of these liners. This is a liner that you can actually take out of the hat. To give you an example, if you want to just wear a regular hat and you want to put the EMF blocking liner in the hat, this is it. This has two different types of fabrics. So not only will it block the lower frequencies, but the higher frequencies, like 5G as an example. Now, if you want to purchase a hat, all hats include a liner. So every hat you purchase includes a liner. You can get carbon fiber hats. You can get custom made hats, or you can just purchase one of the basic hats with the liner built in. All the liners are the same quality. Now, the snoods are on sale as well. Everything's on sale at tinfoilcap.co. You definitely want to check out the Faraday cages. We've only got a few of these left, so take advantage of this. This is a Faraday cage for your phone. If you put your phone in here, you will not be able to receive a signal. So do not expect a phone call if you put your phone in here. There's no way. We've tested all of our products also with technologies that will monitor the amount of EMF frequencies and the type of EMF frequencies. And we can absolutely verify that the EMF liners will block radiation. Read the testimonials, get yours, get the discount. Go to tinfoilcap.co for EMF protection from head to toe. All right, let's get back to the presentation right now. Charles Marquart with us today, and we're going to talk about it. So first, just we were getting into some of the Anunnaki and the ancient Babylonian stories and the different scriptures around the world and the mythologies and how it even links up to Nordic mythology, Sumerian, and quite fascinating. And it got really deep. And we might get into that again here in a little bit, but really today we're going to focus on an amazing and equally frightening experience Charles had, I would say about 50 years ago. I think it was like 73, 74.
Yeah.
Somewhere
Yeah.
around.
I was around 13, 14 years old. I was a, young adolescent teenager.
Okay.
But
Well, we've all been there.
yeah.
So first of all, introduce us to you though, man. Thank you for being a guest on Leak Project. It's great to speak with you. This is really, I'll tell you, my passion when I got into Leak Project was doing interviews with real people that had real stories that sound out of this world or sound, like a bit on the paranormal side, but they're genuine. And those are my favorite. And that's what I really am excited about this opportunity to speak with you is your experience. And I think it's probably led to other opportunities in your life. But yeah, man, let's get into this. Super excited. Thank you.
Well, like as Rex was saying, we were talking about some of the subjects concerning the Anunnaki, how beings from whatever, another dimension, another planet, a whole other galaxy came down here and kind of started tinkering with us. And all the over the world, all the religions and mythology seems to be connected with it. Um, and as I was discussing with Rex, the the big thing is when the Ajiji revolted, because they were kind of the working class slave class. Well, we were their replacement, and it's my personal belief, just from what I've been gathering since I've really been diving into all of this since 2012, and what we're at now is we're at the crossroads of our freedom from being enslaved for these last X thousands of years, and how I've had UFOs are all or UFOs, extraterrestrials, interdimensional beings, demons, angels, whatever you want to call them. I think they're maybe all one and the same. Uh, but um, the phenomenon of people being abducted all over the world is actually these days kind of well known. There's been a lot of books by some credible authors, but I think there are also millions of people that know they've had some kind of experience and it was just a one-time thing. They've never seen it again. Maybe there's a lot of people that think maybe they were abducted, but they don't really quite know and aren't sure. And I think there's lots of people like me that are like that. And what's this unprecedented place we are in the history of our country, politically, because what we did was replace the old school kings and queens, ruled by divine right, which is all that Anunnaki stuff, the Anunnaki bloodlines. And if we're at the cusp of a great awakening, like I think we are, I think people like me are going to start coming out and like maybe making sense of what happened to them. So I began to suspect that I was maybe an experiencer, an abductee sometime in my 20s. And that would bring us back to the 1980s before, the old people that had the internet were DARPA and, the military industrial complex and the big universities. But then cable TV came out. There was a lot more shows about it, and it was a subject I've always been like fascinated by. Especially since in light of my own personal UFO experience, and uh, and the thing that kept me from thinking that maybe I probably wasn't was I didn't have the missing time element to my experience. So that brings me back to oddly enough, I had my experience within 2 weeks or so of hearing about the Betty and Barney Hill story. Are you familiar with the Betty and Barney Hill story, Rex?
Oh yeah, I've interviewed their granddaughter
Okay.
a few times, and so I know the story very well, and I find it fascinating.
Well, okay. So I found out about it. This was like 73 or 74. It was the beginning of what late night TV was going to be after Johnny Carson. So Carson gets over with at 10 o'clock. What's going to be on after Carson? Well, there was a show on for a while, a talk show with a personality. His name was Tom Schneider. I think he's no longer with us anymore, but he had a cool show. It was called Tomorrow with Tom Schneider, and he covered a variety of topics, and it was like a long form talk show where they delved down into things. And one night he had Betty Hill on, and this was the first time I'd ever heard about the abduction phenomenon. Up until then, from what few books I could get a hold of, and I come from the days when there was only 4 or 5 channels on, and you had to walk up to the TV and turn the knob, right? So there wasn't a lot of like UFO stuff for the longest time, and if there was any mention, oh, those crazy people with their little green men, or having a convention in the desert in Nevada or something. So I was fascinated, and I was you know really paying close attention to the show, and especially towards the end, where Betty kind of was able to have a conversation with what seemed to be the leader, and was shown the star map of where they were from. And by the way, it turned out it was unknown at the time, and some years later, after that, uh, with the better astronomy equipment, actually they did find the star system that she drew from that encounter. But anyway, I don't want to get sidetracked off of that too much.
Let me jump
But
in quick also if I can.
okay.
So the gal that I interviewed a couple of times, her name is Kathleen Martin, and she's the niece, Betty's
Okay.
niece. So I just wanted to clarify that. And yeah, cool. Please continue.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, they showed somebody did a sculpture based on like drawings that she described on what they looked like and everything, and I was um, just like really just intrigued. And I remember thinking, wow, that would be so cool to meet it, someone from not from this earth and everything. But also the descriptions of like the painful uh, examinations, that part kind of freaked me out too. I didn't, I'd never considered that, contact with another like advanced species would involve anything like that, right? It's just, so the whole idea is like, so a couple of weeks later, it was a weeknight, but there was no school the next day because of some school holiday, like the MEA teacher thing or something like that, and I asked, hey, can I, I was still, living with the parents and stuff. And even though I was 13 or 14, I couldn't just take off without saying where I was going. And, it was at nighttime. So I'm going to run down to the convenience store. I had $1 in my pocket, and I wanted to get myself a snack, just for something to do. So it was probably like maybe a half a mile walk, and, through a suburban neighborhood. I was on the northeast quadrant of the 694 loop around the Minneapolis St. Paul area. And so like there was no tall building. It was just a like what they call a bedroom community. And they were all always laid out with winding streets. They weren't in grids like you have in a city. Um, and through this little park that I'd grown up, playing baseball in and everything, when kids used to play baseball without any organization, jumped a fence, went to the little convenience store, bought my snack, and uh, by the time I had crossed the tracks and climbed this fence and like was back on the roadway walking towards home, I'd pretty much already eaten my snack. And I was looking to the north over my right shoulder because there were some like thunderstorms and like what people might call heat lightning, when you see lightning when it's not raining but it's like off in a distance. So I was watching the lightning, and it was still kind of a warmish fall night, but I had like a jean jacket on. And then I'm walking along and I see these three white lights in the sky. And I think, oh, it's a small airplane with landing lights on. And in aircraft, the landing lights kind of serve the same function as headlights in a car. So you can see what's directly in front of you, like while you're landing. Up in the air, they don't do that much good. Other than the important function of making you more visible to other aircraft, especially at night. But anyway, so I'm watching this, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, he's heading towards Crystal, because back in that day, small airports, before they were all insurance regulated down, you could have little air shows there. And my mom was interested in aviation her whole life because she grew up on a farm in Montana, and she had relatives that ran a crop dusting business. So that kind of filtered down to me. So I'm watching these lights, thinking about it, and um, anyway, by the way, later on I did go and get a private pilot's license. I haven't used it in years because it's just too much money for such a hobby. But anyways, so I'm watching it and walking along, then yeah, okay, looking at it, and then as it gets really close, I noticed that it's a lot lower than it looked when I first started watching it. And there was actually a water tower nearby as part of this park. It was like on this park property, so it wasn't really much higher than this water tower. And I'm guessing that water tower probably wasn't any more than like maybe 100, and some feet tall, maybe 150 feet tall, if that. But
What town is
as I
this
got
in?
closer, I got this eerie feeling, and it
Charles.
was totally silent. And it got, I'd say, like maybe at a 10, 20-degree angle from me. That's when I saw that, you know, well, by then for sure it wasn't an airplane, that it was three orbs of light, white light, and behind it were three red lights, red orbs. And I didn't see a craft. It was just these orbs. And I don't know if you got if the photo came through. I sent you a text of a hand drawn picture last
Yeah.
night of what I
Let me see
saw.
if I can find that. Now, real quick, what town is this that you're in?
This is a town called Coon Rapids, Minnesota. It's a strange name, but it was right next to the Coon Rapids water tower, as a matter of fact. And or one of them. It's a pretty big bedroom community, and it was, even at that time, I think it was around 30,000 people at the time. Now it's around 70,000. But uh, yeah, it was just, you know, central Minnesota, no big deal. In fact, it was kind of at the intersection of Crooked Lake Boulevard. Yeah, Crooked Lake Boulevard and like 115th and Hanson. Yeah, kind of the major crossroads is Hanson and Crooked Lake Boulevard. So you see, right, but that's some railroad. The intersection is crossing is the railroad tracks. Right directly to the left of that, you'll see that water tower. Oh yeah, pull it down just a little bit. Pull it down just a little tiny bit.
There's the
100
tower.
Left Avenue, and where it turns into Edelweiss.
Here's the
Yeah,
tower.
so that used to be a convenience store right there. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
this is
here's
about
the
where I
tower.
was. Yeah, there's the water. Okay. So uh about opposite the tower, going the other way, that's about where this craft was. Okay, so now here's the kicker. Okay, so rotate it the other way, which
Okay.
wasn't there at the time. The park was way different then. This was like, 73. Um but there was playground equipment there, and a baseball diamond. Yeah, so about right where your cursor is, about straight up from there, is about where it stopped when I waved at it. So there was the three white lights, and then the three red lights flat, and they were like brightening, flashing in sequence, like dot 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 dot. And when I saw what it was doing in the flashing red lights and all silent everything, I knew. I mean, right then, and it brought me right back to the program I watched, and Betty Hill's description, and all of a sudden I was just excited. It's like, wow, I'm about to like meet some, like, the thought of meeting somebody from another world, like, millions of light years away. It was just like, oh my God. And I started jumping up and like waving at it, and then it stopped. And then, and then I was scared. I mean, it's like, because then right at that same second, I remembered the more frightening aspects of it. And I go, oh, what did I just do, man? And then, I look over, and I didn't see it slide in, and I didn't see it pop in, but if you can see that, it was kind of like that's what I saw. So it was the three white lights and the three red lights going dit dit dit, and I didn't see them at first because they were like directly behind the white ones, so like they were blocking, so I couldn't see them. Then when it got like nearly over my head, then I could see them, and then after I got like really super scared and like pulled my hand back, I look over. There's another arrangement of lights exactly the same. It was almost like mirrored, and I didn't see it pop in, and I didn't see it slide in like flying from the side. I was like, it was just there. And then so I'm looking at these two things, and they're equidistant apart. I don't know, like maybe a half a football field apart, and they kind of stayed. They flew a circle around my head like that, and I'm just watching it like in utter amazement, going, all right. And my thought and feeling was, okay, they could tell I was scared, and so they're not going to push it. So they kind of did this little mini display where, like I say, they flew a pirouette around me like that a couple of 2 or 3 times, and then they both flew off to where I couldn't see them because they were fairly low, so they didn't have to go very far to where I didn't see them anymore, like go over the tree line. And then they came back one more time and flew out of sight and then came back one more time the other way, and then I didn't see him again. And then, what makes me think I didn't have any missing time is because I walked back home because that's where I was on my way to when I had this encounter. And I told my parents about it. I mean, because it wasn't that late. It was it was fall, so it got dark fairly early, and it couldn't have been any later than around 8ish. I'm thinking. Because it wasn't the same night that I saw this program. Like I say, it was like a week, maybe a couple of weeks later.
Okay. So you're living at home at the time. You go home, you tell your parents about this, and what do they say?
Well, I mean, I guess they didn't really know what to say. They just kind of took it in and said, okay, that's odd. But there wasn't like any further discussion of it or any like, maybe we should report it or something because, I didn't think reporting it would like do anything other than like, you were seeing what? You tried marijuana, kid, or something like that. Um, I think by that time I had tried it, but I mean, in the 70s, the stuff wasn't very strong. And back then you kind of had to try it a few times even before it did anything for you. But like I say, I hadn't like been experimenting with like drugs or anything like that. I was kind of a more of a choir boy because I couldn't afford to get caught because I'd get my ass handed to me, right? Um, not like other kids, like whatever, smoke in front of them, nothing's gonna happen. Like me, no, but so I mean, and I just kind of kept it with me, and I don't even think I really told anybody about it, because I didn't think anyone would believe me or anything. Later on, um, like just out of high school or whatever, when the subject of UFOs was like starting to be more talked about, because all the books came up, and I grew up in a house where there was a lot of readers. I had already read Eric von Daniken's Chariots of the Gods by the time I was like 12, 13 years old. So I'd already seen that book and read it and seen pictures and everything, but it seemed like it was something that was so far away. It's like, and such a rare thing. It's like, oh, that'll never happen to me or whatever. But so and even at the time, it's like, oh yeah, he just made it up. He's trying to sell a book. At the time, it's pseudoscience. Um, but and then into the 80s and 90s, I was more, if the subject came up, I was way more, I was pretty open about sharing that experience I just shared with you. Um, and letting people know that my experience was way different than anything I'd ever read about as far as what I saw, because up until that time, like in the 70s and out through the 80s, it was all about flying saucers or a flying cigar or something like that. I had never heard of um, of orbs being part of this thing, and and when I really started to dive into the subject, by the time I had a computer and an internet connection and, was able to stumble around on it best I can as an aging baby boomer, that, when I was in high school, computers were run by paper punch cards, and they let only the smart kids in the math classes play with them. But, uh, it, and even then, like and this was like right after 2012 that I really started to get into it and really filter out, because at the time, to me, it seemed like there was a lot of channels like that were like putting kind of really stupid looking CGI stuff up and other stuff. And I've gotten my I guess my armor up, and now I just really don't care if you believe me or not anymore. Uh,
Let me
but it's not that I want to, I mean, I don't like disagreement and confrontation and stuff. So if I know the person really can't handle that subject, I just don't bring it up.
right, right. Let me
Um,
jump in real quick because I think you kind of just barely touched on it. You said the first experience you remember having was in the 70s, though?
Yeah. Well, no, I mean,
Much about that.
it's the only experience. But what I'm saying is, when I first started to really get into the subject, I saw lots of video clips, and it hasn't been like, except for the last maybe 3 years, 3 to 5 years or so, because I have such a bad sense of time and it's moving so fast. Something that wasn't that long ago may have been longer ago than it was, or something that wasn't that long ago seems like a long time ago to me now.
Right.
But I think, like just over the last few years, let's say, I've finally started to see video evidence that kind of approaches what I saw that night.
Which, okay.
Just orbs of light.
Did you see orbs of light in the 70s too, or just the 80s?
No, it was just orbs of light in my UFO experience. Now I know it kind of like I thumbnailed a little bit. So fast forward to just post 2012, and when I really started to dive into the subject, and it was motivated by like a trauma, and my back in 1981, my dad died on December 15th. And like Christmas has always been like, I was starting to not like it anyway because of the commercialism and like what it was supposed to mean and all that. So then after that, I really didn't like it at all, for the rest of my life, from here to four. Now I've kind of more or less made peace with it. But anyways, when that Sandy Hook school shooting happened, and that happened right before Christmas, and like I started channeling all that grief for some reason, and it just came up, and I was in such grief. I almost like had to check myself in someplace. And I don't know what it was, but for some reason that emotional response triggered me to really dive into all this stuff. And it was about that time when I found your channel, actually. And that's when I was still trying to sort out, filter out, use my discernment on like who I like, what makes the most sense to me and everything. And I'd like to credit not just you, but then the discussions you've had with the people you've had on has really kind of helped me figure all this stuff out. And actually, there's more to figure out. There's more to go. I mean, just where we are with this wacky election, it ain't over yet. It's only just getting started. We don't even know what the hell's going to happen next month.
Wow, that's pretty intense. I appreciate Charles having the strength and the courage to come out and share his testimony with us. And you can tell by looking at his body language and hearing what he has to say that, he's not making stuff up. Now, he doesn't understand exactly what happened that night. And I think that's what we're all trying to figure out, especially those of us that have had experiences that you might consider possibly contact with non-human intelligence. So very interesting. And if you want to listen to this in full, we get very deep on the possibility of certain like projects, maybe similar to MK Ultra, could possibly explain certain events that people think are extraterrestrial. And we talk about the reasons why. We get into the very real possibility of our entire civilization being influenced by non-human intelligence. And I think you'll want to listen to that. So it's over on Patreon. You can listen to it in full. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff that we can talk about there that we can actually talk about there. It's pretty cool. I really like these organic conversations with people that reach out to me that you can tell they want to share what happened to them in hopes of finding out what it was about, why they had that event, why it was them, and was it extraterrestrial? What was it? So definitely jump on over to our Patreon, and that helps support Leak Project. We really appreciate your support. I put about 10 hours a day, sometimes more, into these podcasts and research. So We want to keep this going, and we're rocking and rolling, and have a beautiful day. So be the change you want to see. Also, I'm planning on doing a lot more on-scene projects here this year next, and I want you to be a part of it. So Patreon is going to be a big part of that.